Hello everyone, thank you for checking out today's video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Chris. We talk all about koi ponds and water gardens and waterfalls, fish, filtration systems, aquatic plants, the whole bit here on this channel. So if you are, into that stuff, if you're looking to build a pond, if you already have a pond and you're looking for some more information, I have well over 100 videos here on my channel explaining all kinds of things about different topics and just sharing some experience that I've had over the last 25 plus years of building ponds. And I'm really trying to help you guys learn how to build, maintain, understand, and ultimately, enjoy your pond. So thank you again for checking out the videos. If you find everything here helpful, please subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to say thank you to me and support me for what I've been doing. And hit the like button, subscribe. I really appreciate the support. So today's video, we're going to be talking briefly about wetland filters, or what's called a bog filter, and basically what they're all about, how they function, some advantages, and what I feel are some disadvantages to it. Now let me start off by saying I don't normally build ponds with these bog filters on them. It's just not my thing. I have ripped out several ponds in the past that have had these filter systems in it, and we'll talk about briefly about what I have found in doing that. But I just want to be upfront that it's not something that I always do. It's not something that I typically build. My ponds all have 4-inch bottom drains, gravity fed into a gravity fed filter system. And the ponds stay really, really clean, clear, happy, healthy, the whole bit. So that's what I do. That's what I stick with. Now, these bog filters, or wetland filters as they're called, they're a really great concept. All right. I love the idea of a natural filter that kind of allows the pond to, let's say, filter itself. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're creating an area connected to the pond, or maybe on top of a stream bed that runs down to the pond, where we dig a deep hole. Basically, we'll get into it more, but basically what it is it's a hole filled with rocks and gravel where we can grow all kinds of plants in. And basically the water flows through the gravel, through all the roots of the plants, and then back to the pond. So what typically is happening in all this is the rock and gravel help to remove solids, right, and kind of filter the water. The water has to go through all those rocks to kind of filter itself. And then the plants that we use to put in this filter, we want an extensive amount of plants in this filter. As they grow, the root systems develop, and those roots pull nutrients out of the water. The same nutrients that algae feeds on. So what kind of happens here is algae is a plant itself. So it feeds on the same nutrients in the water that your other plants do. But algae is a very small plant, right? And things like irises and cattails and all that stuff are larger, and they're going to draw more of those nutrients out of the water to grow, thus starving out the algae, which then keeps your pond clear if you don't have algae growth. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. Now, I've seen these bog filters kind of designed and built in different ways. Two different ways specifically I'm going to talk about. One I don't like. The other is better, okay? So the one I don't like is when I have seen like a bog area built into the side of the pond where basically we have a pump buried down in the gravel, in the deep gravel pit on the side of the pond, with all the plants growing around it. And what tends to happen is the water is being pulled from the pond into this bog area, because the pump is buried down in the rocks. And the water goes through all the plants, right? All the roots. It goes through the rock and then to the pump. So the pump then, will pump it back out to your waterfall or whatever. So the concept that I've heard for this is basically the fact that the pump could be buried in the rock. Typically, it should be put in what they call, I know there's a company, they call it a pump canyon. It's basically a box or big cylinder box thing that's all perforated. And you can put that down inside the bog area and then fill all the rock around it. And it gives you a big open area to put the pump in to access the pump. So the pump is not basically just buried in gravel, okay? But as the water's being pulled through all this, what I have heard is that this is efficient because by the time the water gets down to the pump, the water is clean and the pump doesn't clog up very often. Now, the problem with this that I found is I went to a guy's house, the pump wasn't working. Calls me up, says my pump's not working. So I go to the house, I've never been there before, I don't know anything about the pond, and the pump's not working. So where is the pump? Okay, I couldn't find it. There's no pipe coming out of the pond anywhere that was visible. It was buried under the ground. The homeowner proceeded to tell me the pump is buried in the rock, here in this bog area. Okay, well, my bog area there was probably about 5-6 feet wide and 5-6 feet deep. Where's the pump? And there's plants all planted on the top of it. Well, I started around the outside edges to try to find a pipe, and I found the pipe coming out, so I knew my pump was right down there. The problem was the pump was buried in about 2 tons of gravel. I had to pull apart half of this bog garden and all this gravel to find the pump. All right, so right there, major red flag. Then this is stupid. I mean, it's just plain stupid. All right, you have a pump here. Eventually, they don't last forever. Eventually, you're going to have to replace it, or something's going to go wrong. How do you get access to it? It gets clogged up, something happens. There's no access to this pump. So whoever built this pond just buried the pump in all this gravel and didn't care. All right, me as a pond guy who does maintenance on koi ponds and stuff, to me, that's a nightmare. That's an issue that I would never, I don't want to deal with that. That's crazy. All right? We need to have access to the pump. So anyway, that was the issue that I didn't like with all that. Now, the other way I've seen these bog gardens done is to have that same kind of pit, all right, filled with gravel and plants, where an external pump or a pump maybe in a skimmer or somewhere else is pumping a water around down into the bottom of it, where it then flows through the rock, through the plants, and back to the pond. That to me is a better idea, okay? I kind of like that better. Now, in the bottom of these wetland filters, the ideal thing to do is to use, they have like these big crates. They look like boxes, milk crates, that you can put in the bottom of this pit. When you dig it out, you put your liner in. You can put these crates in the bottom, and then you put larger stone on top of the crates so they don't fall through the holes, and then smaller gravel on top of it. The idea here is basically to keep an area underneath the rock where the water's free flowing. That allows the water to flow in there freely, and the settlement to settle underneath all the rock, okay, the heavier debris, and then the water goes through the rock, through the plants and all that, and back to the pond. Now here are my issues with that, okay? It just seems counterproductive to me to have this basin underneath all the rock and gravel for the settlement to settle in when we're pumping water into it, okay? It just seems kind of counterproductive, right? We want an area for all the settlement to settle in, but yet we're pumping all our water into it, which is going to constantly churn it up, all right? I've seen issues where I have removed bog gardens out of a pond because we're, rebuilding the entire pond. I mean, not bog gardens, a bog filter. And, the rock on top is pretty clean, although sometimes the plants, the roots in the plants have totally just taken over. But as I dig down, there's more and more sediment and debris clogged in those rocks. Once we're down to the bottom and I find those crates and we pull those crates out, there's a lot of sludge and muck and sediment and stinky crap rotting down there. The one that I did rip out that I'm talking about here now, they had a sump pump built down into that area down there with like this big perforated pipe that went down in the bottom, and the idea was that if they go on top of the gravel with a water hose and spray down all the gravel, it was going to wash all the sediment down to the bottom where their sump pump that was set down there could then pump it out. Okay, well, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know how many times they actually clean it and what the regular maintenance was on that, but I can tell you there was a lot of garbage in the bottom of that pond, and it was pretty gross in the bottom of that bog filter pit thing. Okay, it was a mess. So while I think the concept of this bog filter, wetland filter kind of thing, is really cool. I really like the idea of naturally filtering the pond, filtering itself. I think that's a really great concept. However, I think long-term and maintenance-wise, not so good, all right? It's just me, okay? I may be wrong. Like I said, I build all my ponds with 4-inch bottom drains and gravity-fed filter systems. My ponds are spotless. There's no debris on the bottom of my ponds. It goes right down to the drain, right out to the filter tanks, where I can then clean it and get rid of it all. And all that sludge and mess is gone, okay? I just personally don't like the idea of sludge and sediment rotting in a pond. I want that out. Now, there's no way to know how much garbage and crap is built up underneath all that rock in your bog garden. I mean, your bog filter. We can't see it. We can't get in there. We don't have access to it. I have seen another system where there's like a big perforated tube that goes down under the gravel, and it can act both ways. One, it can allow the water into it, dirty water into it, that can then be pumped out. Or I have a client that I've seen in the bottom of his pond is all gravel, and he's got these pipe system in there where he can actually pump water down into the gravel through these pipes that push all the sediment out of the gravel to keep it clean. But then it's going into the pond, and the pond water is all murky and dirty. I don't get it. I just don't get it, okay? I mean, my whole thing is, okay, I have never put rocks and gravel on the bottom of any pond I've built. It's always been 4-inch bottom drains and gravity-fed filter systems. And there's a reason for it, okay? Because that rock, naturally, the gravel in the bottom of your pond holds all the sediment. There's no way to clean it out. I drain and clean ponds all the time, every year. And every one of them that I have to drain and clean with all the rocks and gravel in it is a mess, all right? My ponds, I never have to clean. There's nothing in the bottom, all right? So that's where I'm coming from, all right? So when I see these wetland filters, these bog filters, love the concept, but I just, as somebody who does maintenance on koi ponds all the time, I just see it as a maintenance issue eventually, okay? Maybe not today, maybe not, you know, next year, maybe 5 years down the road, things can become issues. And, you know, I'm always that person that gets called when there is issues. So there might be, you know, 20 ponds out there with you know, these bog filters that are no problem. But of course, I get the phone call from the one person that has the problem. So that's what I see, the people that have the problems. I have another client I actually met this summer that has a bog filter on top of a stream bed that runs back to the pond. And they had cattails planted in it, all right? Well, the cattails have totally taken over the whole bog area, and it's just a big mess. It's just a wild, overgrown cattail, you know, planter. And again, it's so embedded with roots and stuff now. You know, how are you cleaning this out? All right, how do you know how much sediment is down under the bottom of all that gravel and all those roots? How is that coming out? I don't know, okay? But these are just some thoughts and ideas that I want to share with you about it. So for me, they're great in concept. I really like the idea. You know, if you know of ways that make it work much better, I would love to hear it. You know, please share with me. You know, if you have a wetland filter, a bog filter on your pond, what's your experience with it like? I would like to learn as well. But this is, you know, what I have seen, you know, and what I have dealt with in my experience. You know, over the years with these things. So yeah, I mean, that's basically kind of the points that I want to stress to you is, you know, the maintenance issues over time. How are we cleaning this? Can we efficiently clean it? You know, having a filter that collects all that muck and sludge in the bottom of it, that we can't clean out, eventually, I believe, starts, you know, making the pond environment more toxic, right? And running a hose over gravel, you know, a foot and a half deep, is not going to thoroughly clean it. It's just not. It's just, the concept sounds good, okay? You know, like, oh, I just run my hose over the top of the bog filter and all the debris falls down at the bottom of the, you know, bog there, and I can pump it out with a sump pump. I guarantee you, it doesn't work that easily, all right? It's really difficult to clean gravel out without actually physically moving it and churning it around, and you know, it's hard. Not only that, if you have this big, you know, pit in the bottom of your wetland filter and you have a sump pump down there to collect the dirty water, all right, and let's say your wetland filter is, you know, 6 foot round, okay, or whatever, 5 to 6 foot round, and you have a sump pump over here, chances are it's not pulling out all the sludge that's over there. Okay, so very difficult to really clean, if we don't have access into there and we can't actually see what's physically going on down there. So I don't like it for that reason. Okay, so next little subject real quick. If we want to do a bog, filter, what kind of plants should we have in it? Okay, what's the best plants to put in it? So just from what I've learned, some experience that I've had, Pseudochorus, the yellow irises, are very good to grow in bog filters. Plants like parrot's feather, right, that can grow all on the top and spread around the top are pretty good. If the bog is deep enough, things like water hyacinths or water lettuce can be good. The thing is that I want to stress as well, with the amount of plants that you have on top of the pond, the bog area, your bog filter, the more these plants grow, all right, especially the plants that cover the water surface, like water hyacinths, water lettuce, parrot's feather, things like this, as they grow and cover the surface, they are capable of restricting the water flow through them. So if you have, say, like this bog filter, this wetland filter, and it's full of plants, and then say it leads to a little stream that goes back to your pond, you may find the pond leaking, losing water, because as all those plants grow and kind of clog up that water that can be released down the stream, the water level behind those plants will rise, okay? Because if the water can't come through, it's going to rise. And if it rises, it could come over the liner, over some of your rocks, whatever, and leak out somewhere on the sides around that bog filter. So keep that in mind. Umbrella palm, papyrus are very good plants in a bog as well. I don't like the cattails because I've experienced that and it was a mess, okay? Water lilies will need deeper water. Lotus plants will spread and take over the whole thing as well. So it's kind of, we gotta kind of be a little picky as to what we put into our bog gardens. Thalia delbata, the big hardy water cannas, are really neat to have. Again, all these plants can get quite extensive root systems. So while those roots are what we want to pull out all those nutrients in the water, they're also going to really be clogging up all those rocks and stuff too, okay? So that leads me to my next little point about the plants in this wetland or bog filter. It's going to take time to establish it. If you have just built a pond and you have this bog filter and that's your only filter system, okay, the first year or so that you have this thing, it may not be doing a great job in pulling nutrients out of the water, because it's going to take some time, a couple years maybe, for some of these plants to really get established to grow these root systems to pull those nutrients out. The most effective thing would be something like parrot's feather or the water hyacinths, water lettuce that grow extremely fast and spread quickly. Something like that can really help to be effective. But some of your other plants, your irises, your umbrella palms and stuff like that might take a little more time to get established. So just keep that in mind. Brand new pond, brand new plants that, you go buy a little plant at the store and you put it in there, well, that's not going to do a lot, right? And you don't want to say, okay, well then I'll buy 25 of them, because in 2 years' time you're going to be overgrown. It's going to be crazy, too much, right? So there's a fine line. So we have to give it time to establish itself and to develop, into a natural filter that's adequate enough to help keep your pond clean. All right, so just some thoughts about that, wetland filters, bog filters. I thought I would touch on this a little bit. Again, not my cup of tea. I like the idea, I like the concept of it, but I'm afraid of the maintenance issues in the future, and how are we going to clean this and control the plant growth and everything else. It'll be a lot of issues to me. All right. So thank you very much for watching. I hope I kind of gave you a little insight, some things to think about. Again, I'm not the authority on bog filters. I don't have all the experience building them, all right? I just wanted to touch briefly about what they are and how they function, and what I have found in my experience with them. All right, so thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hit that like button, subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. And take some time, look at all my videos, go through my playlists. I have everything categorized for you so you can find your way around a little bit easier. All right, thank you very much. Have a great day. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.